Good evening to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, request you to please be seated as we are about to begin with the session. I'm architect Ketki Karmarkar. On behalf of GRIHA Council, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for this session on transitioning to clean energy. Energy is the most vital resource which steers economic growth of any country, and its availability governs the development of the country. As you all know, that fossil fuels are scarce, and it's high time to think about alternative source of energy which can be renewable, and at the same time it should be clean in order to meet future needs and to avoid further degradation of environment. Today we have gathered here to hear experts working in this field who can put light on resilience and reliability of renewable energy technology in India. With that note, I would like to invite all our esteemed speakers and chairs of the session. Associate Professor Alistair Sproul, Head School of Photovoltaic and Renewable Energy Engineering, University of New South Wales. Dr. Ashvini Kumar, Senior Director, Renewable Energy Technologies, TERI. Professor Rajneesh Rana, Mr. Rajneesh Rana, General Manager, Business Development and Contracts, EESL. Mr. Neeraj Kuldeep, Program Associate, Counsel on Energy, Environment and Water. A warm welcome to all of you. We now begin with our session with the thematic address by Associate Professor Alistair Sproul, Head School of Photovoltaic and Renewable Energy Engineering, University of New South Wales. He's a researcher, and his research is primarily focused on integration of photovoltaic energy systems with buildings in order to develop low energy, low carbon buildings. It is also looking at what additional value can be gained from PV systems that can produce more just than electricity. A large part of his research is involved with his current position as program leader with the Low Carbon Living Cooperative Research Center. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak here today. It's a great honor. I'd like to talk today about rooftop and utility scale photovoltaics. I know this conference is mainly focusing on habitat, and I think solar rooftops is where we start, but it's interesting to see how that can develop and grow into becoming utility scale photovoltaics. Now, this slide shows a bit of history, really, of the photovoltaic industry. On the vertical axis is the levelized cost of installing photovoltaics. Now, not back in 1978. I didn't start back in 1978. I started working in this field in 1985, close back there. But electricity back then from photovoltaics cost something of the order of $2, $2.50 per kilowatt hour US dollars. Now, the horizontal axis shows that the industry was only 0.1 of a gigawatt back then, very small. As the industry has grown in size, we're getting to the point, this is 2013, we grew from 0.1 gigawatt cumulative back then to something like 10 gigawatts. Now, 10 gigawatts has been my whole career in photovoltaics, but it's still small. Small, yeah? We think we're big, but it's going to displace maybe 2 coal-fired power stations. But there's good news, because photovoltaics has been growing at about 40% per annum over the last 30 years. Now, if you and I invested $1 30 years ago, and we got interest rates of, everybody's paying attention now, if we all invested $1 30 years ago and got 40% interest, how wealthy would we all be, yeah? This is the rate at which photovoltaics is growing, but it will produce long-lasting benefit to humanity if we as a species decide to continue to grow photovoltaics at this pace. We need to do that to meet the challenge of climate change. So this is just showing you that in terms of 100,000 megawatts, which we reached in 2017, this is global annual PV installation, so we reached 100,000 100,000 or 100 gigawatts of production in 2017. Now still that's about 20, 25 coal-fired power stations. Still relatively small, but growing. Growing very quickly. Still 40% per annum. If we look around the world, globally, a lot of these photovoltaics, the blue, is on rooftops. Some at utility scale. Sorry, the blue is utility scale globally. I'm thinking of the Australian situation, my apologies. Roughly 60% utility, 40% rooftop in 2017, but interesting to watch that rooftop. In Australia, we're the other way round. A bit hard to see on this graphic. This graphic's from 2008 to 2017. About 90% of Australia's 90% of Australia's photovoltaics is rooftops. In recent years, we're starting to see utility scale. Now, since about 2008 and 9, we reached 7 gigawatts up to 2017. We will install 3 gigawatts in 2018 and go from 7 gigawatts over the last 7 years to 10 gigawatts in just 1 year. That additional 3 gigawatts. That's a growth rate of 40%, roughly, cumulative. So what that starts to mean is that if we take a Google snapshot of Sydney these days, this is a random suburb somewhere in Sydney, we can see rooftop photovoltaics starting to be quite common on the rooftops of Sydney and cities all over Australia. We have a map, colleagues of mine through the Australian Photovoltaic Institute have put together maps which show the percentage of rooftops that have PV, photovoltaics on the roof. And it can get up to maybe 30, 40% in some parts of the country. Very sunny up here, Brisbane, around Brisbane in Queensland, a lot of photovoltaics on the roof. Adelaide, my Vice-Chancellor very bravely mentioned the cricket down in Adelaide, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the cricket. I'll spend more, to cheer myself up, I'll talk about photovoltaics. But down here, a lot of photovoltaics in South Australia. Rooftop. So Australia is unusual. Most of the world has utility scale photovoltaics. We started to grow our industry by investing in rooftop systems first. And the reason for that, I should go back to the original slide. Rooftop photovoltaics competes with retail electricity. So a few years ago, photovoltaics crossed the line where it was competitive with retail electricity. Today, we've actually gone past that, and I'll show you a slide. In Australia and many parts of the world, photovoltaics now is cheaper than wholesale electricity. Cheaper than burning coal, gas, or oil, or nuclear. Photovoltaics and wind now hold the key to low-cost, clean, green energy. So my colleagues have been working on these sorts of mapping where we can look at rooftops anywhere in the city using GIS data and work out how much photovoltaics could we fit onto the art gallery in Sydney or Central Railway Station in Sydney. But the interesting thing is that this graphic from the International Energy Agency shows us that as of 2017, Australia was getting something like 4% of all of its electricity from solar. India here, just a little bit behind, 3.5% or thereabouts, but still very, very good. If you've cracked this number anywhere in this few percent, growth over the next 10 years will take this to much larger numbers. And we need to do that. We need to do that. We need to keep growing. Here's a comparison of how sunny a place is, how much sunshine and how much power you get out of a PV array. Here's Australia. This is the cost of electricity. Australia is quite expensive electricity, but the solar PV is now cheaper than conventional electricity. India, I think it must be getting very close. that very soon India has slightly cheaper electricity than Australia, but is getting very close to having photovoltaics being cheaper. The bigger we grow the photovoltaics, the cheaper it becomes, the more quickly we can displace fossil fuels. Here's a graphic which shows Australia's solar energy in yellow from rooftops, green in wind, blue in hydro. 5 years ago, there was no solar. Now we're starting to see combined, the renewables are providing something like 20% of all of our electricity. If you come to University of New South Wales, please visit us. Professor Daya Prasad, my colleague, is also in this building with the low carbon living CRC. But this is the TERI Energy Technology Building, a 6-star efficient building in Sydney at University of New South Wales with 150 kilowatts of PV on the rooftop. But as our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ian Jacobs mentioned, as of next year, University of New South Wales will go 100% solar. Our university went out looking for a new power purchase arrangement and found that after all the negotiations, that solar photovoltaics from a large solar farm in Western New South Wales could produce electricity, sell it into the grid, and we would buy it, and it was the lowest price, the lowest tender on offer. No subsidies. No subsidies. Cheaper than coal, cheaper than gas-fired electricity. This is a strange and wonderful feeling. I haven't said that too many times publicly, but it's a wonderful thing to say. After 30 years of being more expensive, suddenly we are now looking at an era where photovoltaics is cheap. And have people seen this image? Elon Musk has put this image out there. A rooftop, a battery in the carport, an electric vehicle, an efficient house. I think the future is very close, and I think it would be great for Australia and India to work together. But thank you very much. Sorry. I think have I run out of time? Yes, okay. You've read my conclusions. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful remarks. I'm sure participants are energized to hear further on this subject. Thank you once again. I would like to introduce our esteemed chair of the session, Dr. Ashvini Kumar, Senior Director, Renewable Energy Technologies, the Energy Resources Institute, TERI. Before joining in TERI, he was working as Managing Director of the Solar Energy Corporation India Private Limited, which is Government of India enterprise set up for implementation of National Solar Mission. Before joining SECI, he worked with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India in various capacities over 26 years. He has also co-authored 3 books and several reviews articles over 50 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. With that note, I'll take further session and invite our further speakers for the session. Mr. Neeraj Kuldeep, Program Associate, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. I'll quickly introduce him. Mr. Neeraj Kuldeep, his research revolves around solar and wind markets and socio-economic benefits of renewables. He is particularly interested in policy regulatory and economic aspects of rooftop solar, and is currently leading a project to design new business models to accelerate the deployment of rooftop solar in the Delhi region. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As you know, I'm representing the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We are a not-for-profit policy research organization. We work across 7 different thematic areas which are listed here. So the top row, which includes energy access, renewables, and power sector team, we deal with some of the immediate and short-term issues in the market, such as impact of GST or impact of safeguard duty, and what could be the optimum power procurement strategies for discoms, given the renewables is now cheaper than conventional capacities. The second row is more sort of mid-century scenarios, where we sort of deal with different long-term scenarios. What will be the mix of different renewable energy technologies, whether there would be some horizon technologies, what are the different pathways to be there, and then the last thematic area is cross-cutting across these 6 existing themes, where we sort of look into some of the horizon technologies and also looking into finance to make them viable. So really we had announced to achieve 100 gigawatt of solar capacity by 2022, and that 100 giga was divided between utility scale and rooftop solar. We have achieved around 24 gigawatt out of 60 gigawatt for the utility scale solar, but when we consider the rooftop solar, we are still at around 3 gigawatt installed capacity out of 40 gigawatt. We have been growing significantly with an year-on-year growth of about 70%, but still we have a long way to go forward. And when we consider the rooftop market, it could be primarily categorized in 4 different categories, which includes commercial consumers, industrial consumers, public sector, which also includes government buildings, hospitals, and other buildings, and then there is residential sector. So as you can see, the bottom bar really represents the market share of these different segments, and much of the deployment has been in the commercial and industrial segment. Rooftop segment has not really picked up. And just Professor mentioned that the future is when we have all the buildings will have rooftop solar. So we really need to make it happen for the residential sector. And in India, because the 2 business models that are quite popular are based on capex, where consumer has to make their own investment, and then there is RESCO model where you are not required to make any upfront investment, whereas you sign a power purchase agreement with the solar developer. And then this agreement could be either fixed tariff for 25 years or there could be an escalation. So these developers are able to provide rooftop solar to commercial and industrial player on the RESCO model, which is being the main reason for high uptake of rooftop solar in those categories. And as we could see on the top right corner, in 2017-18, the share of OPEX model was around 24%. It is still small, but compared to the previous year, it has increased from 18% to 24% within a year. So going forward, we could see more and more deployment in the commercial and industrial segment under the RESCO model. But again, the residential sector is sort of left out there. So what are the reasons for this sluggish growth in the residential sector? So we can consider 4 stakeholders which are sort of involved in deployment of rooftop solar, and each of these stakeholders have their own separate set of challenges, which is sort of hindering them to service these residential consumers. So first, consumer itself. So lack of awareness about the technology has been really the sort of deterrent for these consumers to go for rooftop solar. Awareness is not just about knowing the technology, but it's more on understanding the technology. So when we go to the market to, let's say, to buy a laptop, we all know what our priorities are. I want this much RAM, I want this much screen size, the weight should be less, or it should be slim laptop. But when it comes to rooftop solar, there are so many options. Even if you go to one developer, he will offer you, okay, you can install this module or that module, or you can install this inverter, that inverter, the price would be this much, that much. Then even there could be so many variations in the installation structure. So the consumers are really confused based on these options, and they do not have clear understanding of the technology. Another challenge is access to finance. So for an average household, the size of rooftop solar system is around 3 to 5 kilowatt, which would cost around 2.5 lakh to 3 or 3.5 lakh at current market price. This is still a significant investment for these average households. So they go for financing options, and they reach out to banks. But banks are not financing these consumers given the small ticket size of the loan. And then they are also demanding collateral for these loans. So no consumer would put their 30, 40, or 50 lakh house for a 3 to 4 lakh loan. So that is really another challenge. The third challenge is ownership or access of roof. So when we consider the tier 1 cities where more of high-rise buildings are, people don't really have access to roof. But when we talk about the tier 2 or tier 3 cities, even though people have exclusive right to their roofs, but then there are uncertainties because the rooftop solar system would really be there for 25 years. So what if after 5 years, when my children are getting married, I need to build another floor? So what would I do with the rooftop solar system, whether I can shift it or not? So those sort of concerns are sort of, again, deterrent from the consumer perspective. Next is developers. So again, as I mentioned, the small size of this system is again deterrent from the developer side as well, because if I have to target a commercial or an industrial consumer, the rooftop solar system size is in hundreds of kilowatt. So it's much easier for me to target those consumers rather than targeting individual residential consumers. So to deploy, let's say, 300 kilowatt system, I need to interact with one consumer in the commercial and industrial segment, but I would have to interact 200 residential consumer to achieve the same capacity. With the sales and marketing, there are associated costs, and the margins in the segment is really low. So the developers are not able to service these individual consumers. Then access to finance is again similar to the consumers. This is also a challenge because when these developers reach out to banks to finance these individual rooftop solar systems, they don't get loans. Then ownership of roof is again an issue, and delay in net metering. So the situation is much better in Delhi, but when we go to other states, there have been cases where developers have installed the system, but even after 6 months or 8 months, the net metering has not been approved or provided by the utilities. So it's a loss-making proposition for both the developer as well as the consumers. And for discoms, like one of the biggest challenges that given the economic viability of the rooftop solar system, high-paying consumers, which are then cross-subsidizing low-paying consumers, are the early adopters for this rooftop solar system. So discoms don't want to lose these consumers, so then they are delaying approval for net metering, and there are no clear processes, which is again cause delays. From the financial point of view, again, the small size of rooftop solar system is a problem. So when a consumer reach out to, let's say, SBI or PNB Bank, then they try to convince them that first, they do not have clear understanding of the technology. What if the consumer stop paying the loan? Then whether there is a resale market for rooftop solar or whether the bank would be able to recover the entire amount. And then even if he wants to finance these projects, then they would have to do the entire due diligence for these small ticket size, which is again a additional cost and a significant time investment from the bank side. So they rather prefer to finance 30-40 lakh home loan compared to 3 to 4 lakh loan for these rooftop solar systems. So we just talk about like various issues which are hindering the market. So what could be the solution which will overcome these market challenges and really open up the residential rooftop market? With this objective, we have been working with BSES Yamuna Discom in Delhi to design some of the new business model which sort of target the entire residential sector because there are subsidized consumers and then there are non-subsidized consumers. So how we can target both these consumers? So when we considered the building framework and ownership of roof, we can categorize them in 3 categories. People who have exclusive access to rooftops. Then there are people who live in high-rise buildings. They do not have exclusive access to roof, but they have shared ownership of the roof. And then there are a third category where people live in rented properties and they move from one property to another within a year or in few years. So the first model, which is utility-led community solar model, is targeting high-rise societies with shared roof ownership. So in Delhi, we can consider these 4-story buildings where the roof belongs to either the top floor occupant or just one family. So these individual consumers can come together and jointly install the system and then share the benefit. In this case, the payment is still made by the consumer. The another model could be based on the OPEX or the RESCO model where the developers can make the investment and install the system. In this case, they would directly sign the power purchase agreement with the utilities and those benefits would be first shared for the common services and then the excess generation can be distributed among the society residents. So when we compare the tariff under each of these models, so the first 2 bar is realized solar tariff under the upfront payment method and the second one is for the subscription. And then the remaining bar are different tariff slabs in Delhi. So S1 is consumers who are consuming between 0 to 200, S2 is 200 to 400, S3 is 400 to 800, S4 is 800 to 1200, and S5 is about 1200. And the upper and the lower limit really shows the average tariff that these consumers are paying depending on their electricity consumption. So here we can see that consumers who are consuming about 400 units can really benefit from subscription-based model. And in terms of saving in both the business models, consumers tend to make savings above 40% on average over the life of the system. Another model was on-bill financing model. So people who have exclusive ownership of the roof, like bungalows in Delhi or in tier 2 cities where individual homes are still quite common. But still these people are not investing because they do not have trust in the technology. So discoms can really facilitate these solar loans to these consumers. And then the repayment would be based on the savings that are achieved on the electricity bill. So here again the interest rate would be very important. So at what rate, depending on the interest rate, the tariff would be different and that would then determine the payback period. So the first bar is solar tariff at if the interest rate is 8%, and then the second is for 10%, 12%, and 14% interest rate. So that's really demonstrate that realized tariff. And also the loan repayment period would again depend on the interest rate that is available. So for 8% interest rate, and if a consumer is consuming more than 1200 units, then that particular consumer can repay the loan within 6 years. These numbers are higher for consumers in Delhi because of lower grid tariff, but if we apply the same model in other cities or other geographies, then the loan repayment duration is much lower for other utilities. The third business model is sort of demand and supply aggregation model, where DISCOMs identify some of the excess roof and freely available roof. Generally, these are from the consumers who are not really a sort of key consumers for developers, like government buildings or warehouses where there is upper limit of 1 megawatt installation, so they have excess roof. So DISCOMs can really aggregate all these excess roof and tender out the capacity. This would be based on the reverse auction or the competitive bidding, which would result in lowered solar tariff. So once we realize this lower tariff, the solar electricity can then be offered to residential consumers on annual subscription. So now even those consumers who live in rented property, they do not need to either install or own a system. They can directly subscribe for solar electricity, and if they are moving to, let's say, another building or another house, they can in the following year they can again resubscribe to their meter. Again, sort of technoeconomic comparison. So both the first two bars really represent the solar tariff for large roof clusters as well as the small roof clusters, because if there are, for same capacity, if we are installing on multiple roofs, the cost of the system is higher, because then we require multiple inverters. Again, this model is sort of feasible for consumers who are consuming above 400 units on average every month. So these models sort of really addresses various market challenges which are has been deterrent for the adoption of rooftop solar in the segment. And I would like to conclude with this particular slide, which sort of talks about the employment creation potential in the rooftop segment. So CW had been doing a primary survey to assess the employment potential, and rooftop solar creates 24 job years per megawatt installation. This is 7 times more than the employment potential in the utility scale. So in total, there would be around 240,000 people working in the sector if we reach the 40 gigawatt target, which is a significant number. And these jobs would be distributed across the states. These jobs won't be just limited to any particular state, but rather are distributed across the region. With that, I'll just conclude. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Rajneesh Rana, General Manager, Business Development Contracts, Energy Efficiency Services Limited. Mr. Rajneesh Rana, he is Head of Contracts and Procurement Department, apart from Agriculture, Pumps and Solar Department of Energy Efficiency Services Limited, an organization under administrative control of Ministry of Power, Government of India. He is responsible for effective and timely procurement and also to look after execution of water pumping and solar projects. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. I'm working with the energy efficiency services, as ma'am has introduced. So we are into the number of programs in the energy efficiency field, which some of you might be aware also. We are implementing many of the programs for the government of India. Some of the programs which are very popular, not only in India, but throughout the world, is our Ujala program, that is the LED bulb program, street light programs. Apart from that, we have now started our new programs in the new sectors like electric vehicle programs, smart meter programs, And we are doing some work in the agriculture field also, and the building energy efficiency also. So going forward with these programs and having a success with us, with all these programs, we have decided to enter into the solar arena also. Now, solar, apart from these programs which we are doing, they are the flagship programs, and there is hardly anyone in the country who's implementing these programs. But if you'll see the solar, there are hundreds of players already in the market. So what addition EESL can bring to these kind of programs? That was a question when we have started these programs. Because there is no dearth for the players in the market who can implement these programs, any kind of a programs. The sector is going very fast, very rapidly. You can see that large-scale mega power plants are coming up. Every day we are growing, crossing the new things. So we have decided that we will not go for the mega power plant, but we will do some kind of a add-on to our existing programs, which can help, apart from the existing programs, to the society in large. So we have talked with some of the DISCOMs, and we have found out they have the excess land in their substations. So the substations lands which are unusable as of now, because if you will see that DISCOMs have a large land pool they have acquired, but the substation can be used only in one part, the other part is being encroached or it is lying unutilized. So this program we have taken up with the DISCOMs, where we have told them that we will utilize the excess land in your substations, and this we will put up the solar plants over there, small in size, maybe 0.5 megawatt to 2 megawatt, because 2 megawatt, as we know, that it will require around 10 acres of land. It's a large chunk of land. So what advantage it will bring this program, that you have a power generation at the end point. So you can somehow reduction in the transmission losses can be there. So there is a naturally element of the energy savings in that, or an energy efficiency is there. Then further, this can be connected to the agriculture feeder, because we are doing some of the programs in some of the states for the agriculture sector also, where the BE 5-star rated pump sets are being given to the farmers, and they are replaced free of cost. And since more than 30% energy savings can be achieved, so the payback period can be around 3 years. So it's a business model which we have taken up with the DISCOMs, and successfully it is going on in the 3-4 states. So we thought that moving ahead with this program, if the agriculture feeder can be connected to this solar, which is being generated at the substation level, so the farmer can get the electricity during daytime, and the nighttime electricity they can be avoided, so their lifestyle can be better, they can irrigate their field in the daytime. Further, we have asked the DISCOM if in this same feeders, if the energy efficient pump set can also be provided. So further, the 30% reduction in the energy can be reduced. So all in all, if you will say the solarization with the energy efficiency, it's a blend of that thing, and beneficial for the farmers, which generally gets the electricity in night time. So we started in few of the DISCOMs, and we are happy to say that that is being inaugurated by the Chief Minister of one of the states also, and the farmers of these areas are very happy. So we are moving ahead with this program. So this is one of the programs in the solar which we are doing. Now further moving, other part of this program is that how the farmers can be encouraged to adopt the solar also, because farmers are getting the electricity free of cost. So they are not concerned about the tariff or the energy efficiency, if we'll say. And if you will go to the farmers with the solar pumps, then naturally it comes with a heavy cost. The farmer contribution is also required. The state government also has to put up a lot of money in that one. So it's all subsidy-based model. If we have to scale up the things, then it has to be non-subsidy driven things. And in India, almost 30 million pump sets are there. 20 million are grid connected approximately, and 10 million are diesel run pumps, which consume almost 1/5 of the electricity which we generate. And we know that it's almost free of cost. So the loss to the exchanger, we can say, or the cross subsidy to the exchanger will be around 70,000 crore rupees. It's a huge amount which we are spending. So again, we have structured a program where we thought that if we'll put up a panel at the farmer field, which is almost 3 times of his pump capacity. So 1/3 of the capacity can be utilized for running his pump during the daytime, and 2/3 capacity can be evacuated to the grid. And the PPA can be signed with the DISCOM for the entire quantity, because the production, because in any case the DISCOM is supplying the electricity to the farmer at free of cost. So it will be a win-win situation for the DISCOM also, the state government also, for the implementing agency, and for the farmer also. So this is a model where you can find that we can go away with the subsidy. It can be scale up. The farmer can get some income also, that I will show in the next slide, that how he can be benefited without investing any money. This is a simple calculation. If we had taken a practical approach for around 7.5 HP of pump set, if you will put around 20 kilowatt of system at his field. So you will see that the farmer, whatever the earmark quota, it can be given to the farmer based on the regulatory commission which the farmers used to get. We can see that the farmers will be intent to save the electricity. He will not just switch on the pumps. He will draw the water, whatever water he wants, and he will switch off when the electricity will go off after 6 hours. Most of the farmers are doing, because in the night time they put the pumps on the auto mode. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night electricity come, 5 o'clock early morning the electricity go. Whatever the water he wants, the water will keep on flowing, and automatically it will switch off. So by this model, he will be attempt to save the electricity, plus he will save the water also, which is, I think, is more critical than the electricity nowadays. So by doing this one, he will, so without investing anything, he can save some money for himself, because from the earmark quota, he will save some money, so he will get some incentive out of that. So that is one of the business model. Now, coming to the rooftop also, we have explored the rooftop also, and when we started this one, exploring last year about the rooftop, we have come across with many of the things. One of the senior government official has asked us to survey his residence to put up a solar rooftop in his building. We have sent the team over there, and the team came up and we submitted the report. The report came up with that the around 4 kilowatt system can be put up on the bungalow of the government official. He called up and he said that since you are a public sector, you people seems to be inefficient, because last year when the survey was conducted, it was a 6 kilowatt of the capacity was assessed. Now you have reduced to the 4 kilowatt. I don't know, because the roof size is same, everything is same. And we called the agency that how come it is that the earlier agency has come up with around 6 kilowatt and now you have come up with the 4 kilowatt. They simply said, sir, that please ask the secretary, sir, that whether the agency who has been there, whether they have been asked whether it is to be put on the RESCO mode or on the CAPEX mode. So that is the thing which you will come to know, where the solarization is going on, whether we are seeing that what will happen after 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, or we are just putting up the things. And we can see the slide which is shown by Mr. Neeraj, the last slide. If you will see the rooftop segment, in RESCO segment, if you will say, there is hardly any development, because people are not willing to invest and they just want to put the rooftop on the CAPEX mode, and after 5 years, whether the inverter will work, it will not work, how the output will be there, nobody is bothered about that thing, but just moving towards the thing that yes, solarization is happening, so it is happening. So these are the few of the concern also which the industry has to see, the government has to see also, that the investment should not go into the wrong direction. So these are the few of the things which the thoughts are from our side, and few of the programs which we are taking up, and we are hoping that in the coming days, the decentralization will be happening more, instead of the concentrated or that one place where 500 or 5,000 megawatt, 500 megawatt or 1,000 megawatt we are putting up, and then after 5 years, whether the demand will be there for the daytime for that electricity or not, or we have to put up the battery for them to sustain that one, where it will happen. So we feel that the decentralization, small solar power plant which can cater the local demand is the best solution to time to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rana, for putting light on agricultural solar pumps. Now I request Dr. Ashvini Kumar, esteemed chair of this session, to summarize the dignitaries' sessions, remarks, and after that we can have question and answer.
Thank you, my dear eminent panelists. I think all the three panelists have presented in different aspects of clean energy. But before summarizing that, I would like to add something from my own side. This session is organized under GRIHA Summit. I am a solar energy professional, and I think whatever has been discussed is very important. I'll come to that. But before that, to the community, I have one suggestion or one question also, you can say, that while, rooftop we are talking about, and there are various perceptions that rooftop is not going as it should have been, the capacity additions are small, there is a lot of potential. These are the few things. Then the question arises why it is not happening. Neeraj has come out with certain, observations, but to you all, which I consider as building experts, I would like to request that why we don't prepare a design, standardized design, where buildings can be integrated with rooftop systems. Because what we perceive in India at least, that a lot more new buildings are going to be there. I mean, whatever exists, much larger volumes of buildings are going to become in, if you see, next few decades. So this is a very good situation for us, that if we prepare building designs where rooftop systems can be, integrated in a way, because being in this field, we have experienced that simply by putting up rooftop systems is not going to be, I would say, enlarge the capacity additions. The reason is, as again pointed out by Neeraj also, that a roof has alternative uses. So it means if I am coming up with creating, let us say, additional spaces by putting up super structure or something, or easy to do models which can be, what we say normally, that if you are going to expand your building, it should be easier that you take out the system, install it on the higher floor when you do that, and these are all things possible. So that's definitely is going to happen, and I think a lot more capacity addition can be expected. Few things which have not been touched upon, and being in this sector, I know on the policy side that Government of India has included rooftop systems, loan on that as a priority sector lending for the banking. So it means to help that there is more funds available for rooftop systems. So that provision was made. I think it's quite now more than a year old provision is there. And then the second aspect is that when you are going for house building loan, so rooftop cost can be included in that officially. So it means you are being provided loans for setting up rooftop systems also. So these measures are in place. Now, just to say something more on Indian scenario, I think this will append some of the information which you already have got. Like if you see that in India, that's, I think, as Professor Alistair mentioned, he is the solar photovoltaic expert. He did, 1985, and we also started working in solar, sir, around the same time in 1980s. And we are all solar energy convert, we say. But still, I think nobody of us, knew that solar photovoltaic can achieve these peaks like we are talking about, the gigawatts and gigawatts capacity additions. So even the ardent supporter of the technology never imagined that solar photovoltaic is going to be one of the solutions for utility scale power. We were thinking that it's a small power, mini grid, mini microwatt or kilowatt or those kind of things. And in fact, if you just have a look at Indian program, when we started National Solar Mission, both the technology like solar thermal power and solar PV power were provided emphasis and equal emphasis. In fact, half of the, equal capacity was shared, 500 megawatt for each. And then the thinking was, I mean, I'm not talking about histories, so many years back. It was in 2010. Then the mindset of the policymakers was that, okay, if you are going for larger capacity plants, go for solar thermal. We kept a limit of 100 megawatt up to each project size. And in PV, no, this cannot go for big capacities. You do limit it to 5 megawatts. So the first tender, if you just look at the history, we brought out for 5 megawatt solar, the PV power plants. But today, as we know, and Professor mentioned that last year alone 100 gigawatt kind of capacity has been added in solar photovoltaics. So this is the kind of achievement. So looking at India, India started from there, 2010, when solar mission was there. Today we are standing somewhere 25,000 megawatt of solar capacity. In that, there are different data like rooftop about 3 gigawatt and rest utility scale power, so that's happening. And as a part of our nationally determined INDCs, also we have committed that 40% is going to be from non-fossil fuel energy by 2030. And today the position is, I just worked out in terms of capacity, if we just look at thermal power is about 64%, the total capacity which is existing in India. In terms of energy, that's about 80% contribution. In nuclear, we have some capacity which is only 2% of the total capacity installed. In terms of energy, about 3% is contributed. Hydro, we had long hopes on hydro, so 13% is the capacity addition through hydro, and around 10% is the energy contribution. And of course, renewable energy sources, which was initially led by wind and now supported ably by solar, its contribution is about 8%. So that's the, and in terms of capacity, we are somewhere 21% we are sitting. So that's the situation. And the government and everybody is looking very anxiously for rooftops. And rooftops, I think, is definitely need to come. Professor Alistair basically explained that how the developments are happening around rooftop utility scale power, and a very distinct factor was brought in, that in India, if we see the rooftop contribution is about 15%, if I even just say a little higher, so 12, 13, 14%. Whereas in other countries, it has been quite substantial percentage of the total solar capacity additions, it going up to 60%. On an average, it's kind of 30% from 40% from the rooftop solar. So it means there is a scope, this can be done. And I think if we have the right policy, this will be done. And one very clear message brought by him is that PV plus wind is the key for clean energy. And sir, you mentioned that about 200 megawatt solar farm is being set up by UNSW. I would like to inform that in India, now the biggest size solar power plant, utility scale, 648 megawatt. That's single plant that was set up. And in fact, if we talk about solar parks and things like that, 2,000 megawatt, the solar park in Karnataka that's coming up, and 1,500, there are so many parks. So, and it can be very well imagined that this is how the capacity additions are expected. And now coming to Neeraj, very well presentation that how or what is happening in rooftop sector, what are the models, capex, opex, and he described very well that what are the issues, awareness, access to finance, alternative use of rooftop space, then what we say single window clearance or the delays in approvals for various things. So, and then he has come out with business models, whether it is OPEX, RESCO, and then some variations of that. But I would like to add my remarks that presently, if you look at the model, definitely, I mean, for everyone, the RESCO model or OPEX model, that makes sense. And the day by day, the ratio of OPEX model capacity additions in OPEX model is increasing. But where is the issue that everybody want to, developers are there who can do OPEX projects. Consumer wants it, but what is the issue? That issue is that the credit worthiness of the consumers. That's where the whole matter is stuck. So that's, I think, is evolving slowly, because right now we as a country are obsessed with 25 years kind of PPA. In rooftop, that's not going to work. Definitely we have to think beyond that, maybe 15 years, 20 years in terms of benefits and things like that. So that will have to come. And that point is very valid, sir. The high-end consumers who are in the bracket of 400 units more, because of the simple reason that they are paying high cost of energy, they are the more beneficial users. And one figure which has come out very clearly is the employment potential. And that's very important number, because that's normally everybody looks around that what kind of potential in terms of employment exists. Mr. Rajneesh Rana, a dear friend from EESL. EESL is a flagship company of Government of India. It has so many set up milestones that not easy to count. And definitely the main achievement, if I want to summarize, is the cost price discovery through a transparent international competitive bidding mechanism. So that's the, I would say, basic strength of EESL. They have been, but in solar, these models are really wonderful. Everybody knows that solar energy is widely distributed. It's a dilute form of energy. It's an infirm nature of energy. What we are trying to do, we are trying to collect it from, again, large chunks of land, putting together, then again sending it to far distant places. So again, the same mistake. So if distributed energy is going to be there, smaller capacity plants, definitely he has articulated that 5% savings in transmission losses in Maharashtra where they are working. So that's obviously is there. I think very good scheme. Similarly, in solar pumps, he has described that how solar pumps in the form of solar PV mini grids can be popularized. And I think that's also win-win situation for both. The peculiar situation in India is that agricultural sector, you are making available energy free almost, so that gives you, extra motive that you have to work out the system. On rooftop solar, also he has, I am aware that they made some very innovative concepts, but I think that need to be pursued. So with this background, with this summary of discussion, what has happened, I would like to open the session for questions. You can identify yourself, you can identify the panelist if you want to, otherwise we'll deal with the questions. So kindly, please. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Yusuf. I run a green building consulting firm called Inhabit and Buildscape in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. My question is relating to rooftop solar. So one of the issues I have with rooftop is that the majority of our rooftop space is located in cities. And Indian cities are among the most polluted in the world. So what happens is most of the time we have a thick layer of dust that forms on our solar panels. Secondly, majority of our roof area is also happens to be in cities, so which means that they are large heat islands. So the temperature also is very, very high. And with every degree rise in temperature, I mean, in most cases in Delhi, I think it touches 55 degrees, the panel temperature. So the efficiency comes down. And of course, as you know, today the PM 2.5 and PM 10 levels are over 600 today. And which also reduces the quality of infrared radiation that falls on the solar panel itself. So in that background, do you think it's sensible to keep promoting rooftop solar? And why not just go for utility scale? I mean, I know there is an issue of transmission and distribution losses, but don't you think it's better to locate solar panels in less polluted areas and then transport it to our cities?
Okay, so next question. So maybe I club 2 or 3, then we can respond to some. Yeah. Yeah, so
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Kumar from CSTV, a promoter of solar energy and reporting. मेरे दो क्वेश्चन हैं. मैं सबसे पहले तो अश्विनी कुमार जी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है कि मेरी टास्क को उन्हें बिल्कुल ईजी बना दिया, क्योंकि जब हाई राइज बिल्डिंग का कंस्ट्रक्शन एक्टिविटी वेयर द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ सोलर एनर्जी इनपुट दिया, why not put away any policy on a building integrated photovoltaic system? So the integration of the solar energy can be included in the building, because we provide the loan for the building construction, but not provide the finance for the solar application in the house. So many housing bank. Second question to Mr. Alistair. So we start the work on vocational training program. Being an NGO, we start, the name is given the CSTV School of Built Environment, Advanced Vocational Training System. I am also life member of Solar Energy Society of India. How can we cooperate with you on a skill of the, because to scale up anything we need some skill. So how to skill the system, skill up so that we can achieve the scale up.
okay, thank you. One more we take before responding. So, yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Siddharth Samaiya. I'm a real estate developer from Bina, Madhya Pradesh. Last year, we thought of implementing solar panel project in our society, but thankfully, we didn't. तो इस साल उसके प्राइजेस 30 से 40% कम हो गए. तो इस साल भी हम लोग कंसीडर कर रहे थे उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना, लेकिन फिर से अनसर्टेनिटी की हो सकता है अगले साल प्राइजेस फिर कम हो जाएं. तो फिर कोई, और फिर उसके बाद जो ब्यूरोक्रेसी है वहाँ पे, और फिर जो गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज़ हैं वो भी बहुत ज़्यादा वेग हैं. तो फिर उस कंडीशन में क्या वेट करना चाहिए कि अभी
Which state?
मध्य प्रदेश.
Madhya Pradesh, okay.
तो फिर उस कंडीशन में क्या करना चाहिए? वेट करना चाहिए कि अभी इंस्टॉल कर लेना चाहिए, क्योंकि काफ़ी ज़्यादा कैपिटल लगेगा उसमें.
Okay. Thanks. I think Yusuf raised a pertinent question that what is happening to dust level, pollution level in cities, and that, in fact, to me, that adds to your cleaning, I would say, maintenance schedule. So that's one thing, but I would like to inform all of you that the technology is also under, I would say, advancement, and people are working on technologies called with special coatings on the solar PV modules, because of which the dust and other things will not stick to it easily. So that's also near very horizon going to come. That's one thing. But another, I would like to respond to you. Maybe Professor Alistair will supplement me if required. He said infrared. PV does not use the infrared. The PV solar cells, they use up to a certain spectrum, and infrared is not part of that spectrum. So let's not worry about that as far as concerned to PV generation. So that's one thing. Sir, would you like to say something on this, as well as the cooperation on high vocational training systems?
At the risk of contradicting the chair, the photovoltaics does use a bit of infrared. Not all as in the solar thermal, but we use some. Look, I think the question of dust on solar modules is a good one. I think until recently, the assumption was that in many parts of the world, the rain would wash away that dust. But of course, in a country like India, where wet and dry seasons, and there'd be a long period with a lot of dust. I visited Abu Dhabi, and of course, dust there is a very big issue. So I think we need to see more development of smart coatings. But this idea of putting the panels where they're best suited, I think that's a very good thing to do. We have the ability to use GIS information and to then map a whole country or map a city, wherever, and just work out where is the best place to put your photovoltaics. So I think that's the sort of information that's needed on a country-by-country basis. What we need to do with photovoltaics is put it where it's best, grow the market. We really desperately need to grow the market. And the bigger we get, the cheaper we get. So if we start in the good places, keep growing the market, and then it will become cheap enough to go into places where there's perhaps poorer sunshine or more dust. Ultimately, the price, we keep seeing the price come down. So it may even be that you just put it in dusty places and leave it. Just add a couple more panels. If you lose power, just add a couple more panels. That may be the cheapest solution. But yeah.
So the question is, why should we subsidize solar installation in bad places? I mean, I think Delhi shouldn't be subsidizing solar rooftop. Purely because of the weather and climate and pollution levels.
I can only comment on the Australian situation. We've probably reached the point where we should stop subsidies to solar. We should probably stop subsidies to fossil fuels as well. But if we stop subsidies to solar, let the market decide, and then we will get a better outcome, I think. But yeah, I'm not for subsidising solar anymore. We should look and just let the market decide.
Maybe I would request you to say something on BIPV also. In terms of cost, I don't know, or the benefits of generation or something, if you want to comment on that. So that's...
Okay. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me lots of time. Look, BIPV, I think we used to talk about putting BIPV in, building integrated photovoltaics, because it did more and was part of the building envelope, and there was opportunities there. That was when photovoltaics was expensive. Then photovoltaics has become cheap, and people say, well, why bother? Just put it on the rooftop or put it out in a field. But I think our time is coming for BIPV, because mass-produced photovoltaics per square metre is becoming quite a cheap commodity. Quite a cheap commodity. Hard to buy a building material cheaper per square metre than a photovoltaic module. So I think the time is now to develop new building integrated PV products, and that will depend on the local architecture, the local building techniques. So I think it's interesting, but I think back to the original question too. In the cities, shading is a challenge. But if it's cheap enough, maybe that's okay.
Rajneesh, would you like to respond that he should wait for prices further to come down, or he should install the system? So any comment on that? So that's...
So he is typically asking the question which generally the DISCOM used to ask, that we have signed the PPA at 17 rupees, now the prices has come to the 3 rupees. So whether even the 3 rupees will be sustainable or not after 5 years. So it is a very simple thing, my dear, that whatever suits to your pocket is a good decision. If you feel that whatever the investment you are making and you are getting the return, then you should not worry about what will happen in the future. And future, the way the technology is coming, maybe tomorrow the battery will also come into the play. The prices of batteries today is 10 rupees, maybe after 4 years it will be 5 rupees. So it is a keep on evolving the things. So prices may come down, but it is up to your requirement. If you require today, you can go ahead. I think the prices are available in the market are the best as of now.
Yeah, he is last. I think he is raising his hand. So maybe. Okay. After him.
Hello. My name is Shyam Kumar. I'm from the glass industry. I would like to know and pitch the point of why not we fast track the codes, something like ECBC and NBC, RERA, where we'll keep mandate of going with the developers and others to compulsory generate 20 to 30% of renewable energy in the building sector. Anyway, RERA is now mandate, and I mean ECBC is going to be mandate. So why don't we focus on that area? Somebody like EESL and TERI, they completely work with the government, and why this point not being made, I mean, onto the fast track level?
Okay, thank you. And I think in the last back side, somebody is raising hand. So.
Thank you, sir. I'm from LIC of India as an architect. And my general question is, sir, actually, now most of the cases in our corporate buildings, we have the norms or mandatory of using the solar energy panel on the top of the roof. but which is limited to just solar lighting or something like that. So my question is that as it is all customized buildings or corporate office, we need a continuous energy like AC has to run throughout the business time and office time. And with the solar energy can be run all those equipments.
Okay. Maybe last question. Yeah,
Hello.
please.
Sir, is there any open access framework going on for solar power, like PPA you are saying, or solar power purchase?
Okay. Maybe I would respond some of the questions. One that was coming that accelerate or expedite this ECBC thing. What I would feel that in GRIHA already there is a, if you install some energy conserving things, including rooftop, water heating systems, and also you get extra points, your building is rated higher. So that thing is there. In fact, I was wondering that during this session, nobody touched upon as a part of clean energy, waste to energy, because that's also a part of GRIHA. Is already there, and but I think that's also a good, because waste you in any case has to be disposed of. If you can use that in a society or somewhere for some useful purpose, that's also one of the things. But certainly your suggestion is taken, and we'll look at how that can be done. The other question was that whether we can use the solar energy, let us say 24 hours or something. It can certainly be done for smaller loads, because then you are using the electrical storage batteries. Batteries are quite costly. Even the prices are falling down, but it's still very costly. And at various places where grid is not reaching, and now every house is being electrified, all the villages are electrified. Many of these places are electrified using solar home systems. Very good solar home systems, like even in Arunachal Pradesh, 300 watt kind of panel and all kind, 5 lights, 1 DC fan, TV and mobile charger, everything is there. So those kind of systems are there with the autonomy of 3 days. So those kind of things are possible, but you have to see. Otherwise, the best thing is wherever grid is, the net metering. That's the provision that during daytime you are feeding your power to the grid, and other times when you need it, you are taking from the grid. So those kind of provisions are there. Sir, open access policy is a very dicey thing in India. Depends on state to state. And in some states, these are very, I would say good policies. Now, for example, in Karnataka, a lot of capacity addition has come through open access, PPAs. And in UP also now good policy has come. Maharashtra doesn't allow you any open access, so it depends on state to state. But definitely that has to come. So maybe through amendment to tariff policy or electricity act, which is pending, through that I think many such things will come. I am afraid now I think organizers won't allow me to go for further questions. So I think I would like to thank the panelists for bearing with me and answering the questions and giving such a beautiful presentation, all so much information. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for making an extremely insightful and interesting session. We couldn't have done this successfully without our active participation from participants, our speakers who spared their time to share their experience and knowledge with us. As a token of appreciation, I would like to request Dr. Ashvini Kumar to kindly present a memento to our distinguished speakers. Associate Professor Alistair Sproul. We'll have a round of applause. Mr. Neeraj Kuldeep. Mr. Rajneesh Rana. These paintings showcase Gond art, which comes with the belief that a good image brings good luck. The Gonds are major tribal communities of central India, and the artists have used natural colors derived from charcoal, colored soil, plant sap leaves, and cow dung. This mystical art form is created by putting together dots and lines. Now I request architect Namrata Mahal, Manager GRIHA Council, to kindly present a memento to our chair of this session, Dr. Ashvini Kumar.